Welcome back to the Sports Business Take podcast, your home for sports industry news with a little personality. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Paul. How are you, brother?
I'm good. It's definitely been a weird week for sure. Obviously, I'm done at St. Joe's now. I finished up all my finals, moved out. Very bittersweet, as I kind of mentioned on our outro video. I guess you could call it that. Not really an outro video because we're not stopping, but outro from St. Joe's. Moving out was hard. Like leaving was definitely hard. I think I am looking forward to the future, and I think there's going to be a lot of good opportunities for me going forward. So
Amen. Amen.
definitely looking forward to that. But being home is super weird compared to dorm life for sure. I mean, dude, like me living in the suite, I'm always hearing something in the background. There's always something going on in my common room. There's something going on above me. Like you can hear everything, right?
There's constant
Um,
stimulation.
yeah, constant. And then I come home. I'm an only child, and I'm like, wow, it is way too damn quiet around here. You know what I mean? I'm used to like the constant noise now, and I don't have that here. I'm like, wait, why is it this quiet? So definitely an adjustment from dorm life back to home life. Um, Other than that, though, I'm good. I'm repping the Tigers today because I'm going to film for my old high school team today, which is exciting.
I love it.
Hopefully, we'll do some stuff for them in the next few weeks. They're on a run right now that I wish we had when we were there. The baseball team's nasty right now. At least from what I've been seeing on Instagram. Hopefully they win today when I go film them. You're still at school for another like 2 weeks, right? Because of senior week and then coaching.
Well, I'm here till June 17th
Right.
for coaching with Seacoast United, which has been an awesome opportunity. Shout out the boys there. We love. And yeah, I kind of did the same thing for you. Like it's a happy sad, right? Because I was walking across campus the other day and I'm tearing up as I walk, and it's like I love this place, but it's time to move on. And kind of thinking the
Yeah.
same thing, right? Like campus life is so different in comparison to like living at home. And kind of because I'm taking this gap year in between now and grad school, and it's like, although I'm probably gonna have work, and I know for a fact I'm gonna get a job. It's like this year off is gonna feel really weird going and living back home. I'm gonna be with my parents. I'm effectively gonna be cooking for myself, right? And it's like it's gonna be interesting. Like I can't say
Yeah.
I haven't effectively been at home for more than a 2 week span in 3 years, right?
Yeah. Right.
Which is
I
nuts.
get it.
Um,
Yeah.
it'll be
For me,
interesting.
it's like a month, but yeah. I mean, obviously, you stayed for your coaching and RA stuff a little bit longer during the breaks than I did, but
Yeah,
I think the word that comes to my mind is so contrasty, right?
yeah, it's big time.
I know that's like not technically a word, but whatever. Um, but yeah, no, there's a huge contrast between like life in a dorm and not for sure. So that's one of the big adjustments. And for you, you've been there for almost 3 years straight. I was only there for 2 years, so it must feel even weirder, you know.
Yeah.
For me, it's a little weird because I haven't lived here for more than a month in over 2 years because I spent last summer in Maine, obviously with the internship with the Sea Dogs. So being back in Mass again full time is definitely going to be something that I'll have to get used to again, but
Mhm.
something that I think I'm ready for. But let's talk about something else that is kind of coming home. No, that's not
Ooh,
right.
what?
That's not right. Is it? Not coming home.
I like the idea. I like the transition.
You
It's
know where I
coming to
was.
the U.S. It's coming to the U.S.
Yeah,
Let's
you
let's
know
say
where I
that.
was going. I'm cutting that part out. Whatever. You
No,
know where
Paul,
I
leave
was
it in.
going.
I like the transition.
Okay. Since you're the big soccer guy, you want to introduce what the La Liga is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So across the last couple of years, La Liga has been taking games abroad. Not specifically league fixture games. That's something they've talked about doing, but they've been taking their cup games abroad, etc. So like their Copa del Rey, which we talked about the other day, their Spanish Cup is played. They played in Saudi Arabia, so it's an abroad thing. It's super unique. Okay, but with the Liga, they're seeking to host games in other countries, specifically the U.S., and specifically talking about regular season games. Okay, so something that's in their 38 game regular season. FIFA is considering changing rules on whether leagues can play matches outside their home territory. With the U.S. hosting the World Cup in 2026, it's super interesting because really capitalizing on the U.S. audience before 2026, where a lot of sports fans and a lot of soccer believers believe the U.S. audience is going to boom into the soccer world, is going to be super interesting. So La Liga is seeking to kind of capitalize on it. We've seen the MLB do it. We've seen the NFL do it with different audiences, right? Um,
By the way, is this the first World Cup that the U.S. is hosting?
no, we hosted a World Cup in what I believe was
Obviously, I'm not like familiar with the
1994.
history. Okay, 94.
I'm just going to double check that fact real quick.
Yeah, because
Um,
I
yeah, it was
thought
the
we had
1994 FIFA World Cup. Which was
okay, yeah, because I thought we had hosted one in the 90s, and I was like, well, then why is the audience boom supposed to be so big now?
so like here's the thing, right? The 1994 World Cup took the U.S. from a soccer no man's land to soccer actually being a U.S. sport, effectively,
True,
right?
true,
Whereas now there's a larger audience and there's a larger growth where we see it happening, and it kind of like soccer has a chance to grow again. So it's like a second chance for it to boom again. Where really what ends up happening is in '94 we have the World Cup, we have the U.S. Soccer League, kind of what the MLS equivalent was at the time. I don't remember what the name of it was. LA is playing in it. Johan Cruyff has played in it. Yada yada yada. Right, and eventually that league goes bankrupt, so soccer fandom kind of dies in the early 2000s after
right,
this bankruptcy and the collapsing of the league, to be then reestablished by the founding of the MLS.
yeah,
Okay, so it's really effectively a relaunching point where the audience, now that we have the internet and now that the world is so much more interconnected, has an opportunity to grow tenfold more. Which is why La Liga
right. That makes
has the
sense.
opportunity to go and kind of capitalize on the U.S. audience and say, well, hey, this is an audience that can watch our games, just like they do the Premier League, and really La Liga doesn't have that right now.
Yeah, they're tapping into an untapped market essentially.
Exactly.
They're trying to follow the example of a lot of other leagues who have expanded their viewership by going international. You see what the NFL has done in the last couple of years with going to London, and that's been so successful. And in Germany this past year,
Mm.
even though the Patriots lost, which is unfortunate, that was super successful. They gained a lot of fans over there in Germany. Obviously, MLB has done a ton of different series, the Seoul series to open the season this year in Korea. They've done games in Japan. They've done games in South America. They've done games in Mexico, just all over the place, and really trying to tap into those different markets as an organization that you haven't really expanded can really generate a lot of revenue for you because it's a whole new base to put your merchandise on. It's a whole new base to sell your tickets to. It's a whole new base of companies that you can partner with and advertise to. So it's really smart for La Liga to do this, and especially because the U.S. is so sports driven,
Mm.
and there is a huge sports economy here. I believe that they'll succeed very well. They need to make themselves present here. You know what I mean? They need to really show face as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. I totally agree, right? We know and we recognize that being able to capitalize on one, players who you have in your audience that connect with those people. So talking about Shohei Otani like we did, and how that connects to the Japanese market for the Liga, right? Real Bautista right now has Johnny Cardosa, who is a U.S. national team player, will be a U.S. national team player hopefully this summer in the Olympics and in the Copa America, and he's ripping it up right now for Real Bautista. That's a team where it's like, well, Real Bautista isn't a team that a lot of Americans would randomly be a fan of. It's not the FC Barcelona. It's not the Real Madrid. It's not even like that third tier Atletico Madrid side. But it is a side that is competitive in the top five and really has a passionate model and fan base and has good players and has that American athlete. So how can they capitalize on this audience is an interesting question. The biggest concern, because like FC Barcelona and Real Madrid have really strong U.S. followings, and really strong fan bases in the U.S. Based on their success in the Champions League and internationally, and them being probably the two biggest clubs in the world, arguably. We can go into a debate there, but we don't need to. And it's really interesting to see, because I'm like, how does a USD Leganes capitalize from the league is sending them to the US? And it's like, well, I'm not really sure how they do. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how the lower league teams might capitalize on it and how they might see growth through it.
Yeah, well, I guess this begs the question for me. I know I answer your questions with questions a lot, but
That's okay.
what do we think is the best way for the teams of La Liga to captivate the U.S. audience?
Mm.
Is it by kind of I my first thought was sports documentary. If they can kind of make something based around their time in the U.S. and release it, like let's say they start playing here in 2025 and they release it in 26 before the World Cup,
Mm.
does that get the U.S. audience in love with La Liga? We've seen that work for audiences, U.S. audience in the past for international sport, right? Drive to Survive on Netflix, great example. Welcome to Wrexham, which I started watching last night, by the way, very good show. That has worked here as well. So I think that may be one way that they can kind of implement themselves into the mind of the American consumer. But other than that, what do you think is the best way for them to implement themselves into the culture of soccer here?
Yeah, good question, right? And I think um, there's going to be a lot. The question number one for me is what type of matches are they bringing to the U.S., right? Because we're talking about them playing league games in other countries post FIFA approval for this in the 2025-2026 season, trying to capitalize on this U.S. market ahead of the World Cup as just fandom rises and rises and rises, right? We're a sports economy, we're a huge audience. The U.S. is 300 million plus people. However many are soccer fans, I don't know, right? But the question for me, and I think the documentary is a great approach because really what we want to do is the question is how can we get insight into these lower teams or quote unquote lower level teams where fans are going to pack stadiums for a Leganes or an Espanol or some other, and I can't list off the top of my head because I'm off my game, so I apologize to all of the Liga fans out there because I should be able to list all 32 teams. It's not 32; it's like 20. But like, how can we kind of give an American audience an insight into those teams? Because you could easily pack the stadium for an FC Barcelona Real Madrid match. You're gonna have no problem
Yeah,
doing that, right? But at the same time, you have no problem doing that in Spain,
yeah,
right? So why would you take a El Clasico, possibly the biggest game in the world, and bring it to the US? You really have no reason to. People would be raging in Europe, right? So you're
yeah.
looking at, are we talking about a FC Barcelona versus some meaningless team? Not to call any team meaningless. I'm not saying that, but in terms of league
Less
table,
competitive.
a team that's less competitive, right? To the US and saying you're going to play here and whatever happens, happens. There's going to be a 5-0 game. I don't think that's what an American fan wants. You want to see a
No.
competitive game,
Yeah,
right?
for
You
sure.
want to see these teams come and have competition. Now, having a legal match in the U.S. is great, but if the product is poor, I wouldn't be
It's
there,
not going to resonate.
right? It's not
Yeah,
going to resonate. So being able to tell these lower side team stories and say, let's grow your audience, I think that's a beautiful thing from the league to do. And I think it's a really smart thing from those teams to do to be able to capitalize,
yeah.
especially because
I
the
think
U.S.
it's them looking at what their top markets are and
Yeah.
saying this is one that we haven't taken advantage of to the fullest extent that we
Mm,
could. Because their president said, Javier Tabas, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right.
you're good.
Um, the official match in the U.S. will strengthen our position in the North American market, which is second for La Liga after Spain. I thought that was interesting that that North America is second in like in terms of market share, in terms of viewership
Yeah.
for La Liga. We're second compared to Spain. I would think that Europe, the rest of Europe, would be second, not us. But I mean, hey, if we're second, good on them for taking advantage of their opportunity, right?
Right, and the audience is totally here. Like La Liga, and here's the complicated part, right? La Liga was possibly the best, or would have been labeled the best league in the world, probably around 2014, 2015. Prime Barcelona, prime Real Madrid, and it was super competitive. Atletico Madrid was doing really well. Like Spain dominated. Sevilla was winning the Europa League pretty much every season, right? But in the last 3-4 years, financial issues, COVID, whatever, they've kind of fallen behind. Both the Premier League and I would say Serie A, and possibly the Bundesliga in terms of competitiveness and interest for a fan base. So I think this is them really trying to say, well, we don't want to lose our U.S. fans that we really have gained and we did earn in the mid and early 2000s, whereas these other leagues are going to want to say, like, I want to continue to grow and I want to really create a better audience and capitalize on it more as they're more competitive and more interesting. Like for me, I could watch the Liga, but I choose not to just because I find the games a little bit less interesting than the Prem games or even the
Yeah.
Serie A game. I think I love like the Serie A is really really good, really competitive right now. It's super interesting, a really high level, and just La Liga doesn't have that in the same way that the Prem does and that Serie A does, or even that Bundesliga does. And those top
Yeah.
9 teams, they have a top probably 7, whereas I think the Prem has a top like 16 teams that could all be competitive with each other, bar maybe like the Man Cities and the Arsenals.
I just had an idea. I want to see what you think about this. What if the La Liga brought over teams to play against MLS teams
So good thought, right?
as a way to resonate with the American audience?
They do that. So in some way, there's always a summer series in the U.S. So the Prem teams have sent teams here, and they compete with both the Prem teams and then also the MLS All Stars, which is super interesting. In the same way, the Liga has done that, where they send teams here where they compete with each other, but they also play the MLS All Stars group, which is meant to be like really interesting and fun and connect with the U.S. audience more. Could they
But
do
I'm
that?
assuming La Liga is a lot better. Like
Uh,
we get crushed a little bit.
Generally, like the MLS All Stars do a decent job. I don't really pay attention to it that much. It's over the summer. There's usually some other form of competition. But like last summer, that was something that happened. The summer series usually do really well and they drive a U.S. audience. And I think what Liga is trying to do here is really capitalize on. Well, we know the summer series is successful. We know we have a U.S. audience. We know our audience might be dwindling because of growing competitors. And can we really go and grasp that audience in creating a relatable experience at a time where they can't get that experience from anyone else, right?
Yeah.
The problem with the summer is there's so much competition for their attention in their eyes where the Liga might not be able to get it because the Prem's here, because Serie A is sending teams here, right? Because
Yeah.
Rex in town, because TST is going on. That'll be an interesting thing for us to talk about when that happens. But there's like all this at the same time, and if the Liga can put a game here in, why not October, November, right? What happens when a Spanish team plays in Wisconsin in the snow? Like that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
That would be
That would be
interesting
so
for sure.
cool. And the players would probably hate it, but it would be super interesting, right? So I don't see a reason that the U.S. market wouldn't enjoy it, and I think it's a really good move from the Liga. But
Do you think it's sorry to cut you
no,
off, but
go ahead.
do you think it's for them long term trying to build a fan base here, or do you think it's just to build excitement for the World Cup?
It's
Or is it a combination?
It's duality. So I think obviously you want long term fan bases because they're going to buy your streaming packages and all this, whatever. They're going to buy your gear and they're going to watch your documentaries, right? While at the same time, you want really a big buzz going into 2026. And can you capitalize on a U.S. audience where there's new fans coming up that are going to be fans of your league and want to watch your league because they're looking for soccer after they've seen soccer so much? And I think it's really interesting because I think I'm not the biggest fan of like going and playing games abroad in terms of domestic competition because it's really just taking away from the home fans who are really committed. Like we've talked about Athletic Bilbao a little bit, right? They have.
I'll argue that point a little bit. It gives the home fans an opportunity to kind of travel and see the world a little bit more.
But do they want
just to be devil's advocate?
Yeah, no, and you're right. It technically gives them the opportunity to travel and do that. But at the same time, when you pay for a season ticket and now you have to pay a $500 plus, probably way
Fair
more,
enough.
right? Airline ticket to go and fly to the U.S. to watch the game. Like, well, I paid for a season ticket. I should be able to see every game at the stadium.
Right.
I paid for the ticket, right? So I think in a fan first sporting market, I don't see it really being valuable. But in a league first sporting market, it definitely has value in bringing your product to other nations and being able to say like, hey, this is what we do. You should want to watch this. And really seeing them connect with fans in the U.S. would be really huge. Like when I was like 12, 13, 14, I absolutely would have killed to go see an Atletico Madrid match and see Antoine Griezmann play and have him sign my jersey in like New York City. I think that would have been awesome. That would have been an awesome experience for me that I would have wanted to capitalize on.
Are you going to buy tickets for the World Cup in 26?
Paul, I'm going to be working the games, buddy. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be working the World Cup final. Don't even Don't
All
even come.
right. All right. That's a
All right,
great goal. I
we're
love
here.
that.
But it is that type of opportunity where really the Liga can capitalize on growing their audience, and there's a huge Spanish audience in the U.S. And there really is opportunity for them to continue their growth in this market. Definitely has a strong presence with growing competitors. It's really important for them to reintroduce themselves and say, "Hey, we are here. You should want to watch us, not the Prem, not Serie A, whatever." Um,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely excited for them to be here in the future. I'm probably going to pay attention more to La Liga now that they're going to be coming here for sure. I know I started watching more Prem games this season, so I'll definitely have to start watching some La Liga games as well. All right, so speaking of the future, what's going to happen in the future, let's move on to Olympics with the AI, with the use of AI
AI.
in their future.
We love AI.
So the International Olympic Committee has created an AI agenda, which I think should be a priority for every league, by the way, because that's one of the developing things that if you can harness the power of it, will help you connect to your fans more than maybe anything that's ever happened before. But I digress. Anyway, an example of their current usage, which I thought was really cool, and I'm quoting this article from Sportico. Working with Intel, Olympics representatives in Senegal recorded 1,000 children from 5 villages performing basic track maneuvers, track and field. Intel's chief commercial officer, Christophe Schell, I hope I'm saying that right, said the company's tool identified 40 young athletes who stood out from the rest. Models were then used to suggest which discipline each might best be suited for.
Mm.
So I saw that and I was like, wow, that's really cool. The fact that you can have a group of athletes and identify using computer algorithms what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and suggest a course of training. That was part of the other um, part of this study. Basically, was AI guides could measure the youngsters' progress, recommended training routines and diets to maximize their development, or even design custom equipment to complement their strengths. So
Yeah.
that is so far beyond anything that I have heard of in my entire life in terms of the use of AI in athletics. And maybe it shouldn't be implemented quite at the youth level, and we'll get into that in a second. But the fact that you could do this for professional athletes and say, hey, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, this is the course of action you need to take, and have it be a calculation instead of a coach.
Mm.
That is super interesting. And I want to know what your thoughts are on that concept as a coach yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of hard because like in that case, AI is just kind of doing my job, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow. In so for one youth market, I think it's super interesting, right? Because we know for a fact parents want the best for their kids. They want their kids to pursue something that they're going to be good at. So natural, like there's definitely natural inclinations to certain things. Like I think if I was to have this, like there's no reason that this thing wouldn't have told me to do like cross country, right? Or do some dumb sport,
I could
not
see you running cross country.
to do some sport that I haven't done, right?
Yeah.
And I would have done it sooner, and now I would have been a D1 athlete because of that. But at the same time, there's a certain aspect of what makes sports beautiful, and that's passion. And a kid finding their passion and just like being willing to go outside and do that sport for however long
Yeah.
is
Explore
what
whatever they want to, just be a kid. That
exactly.
is why I said we'll get into like, is it going to be good at the youth level or not? But let's talk about at the professional level. Do you think this is something that could help professional athletes all over the world develop their skills and really become the best version of themselves? Like this type of technology?
It's tough. I think yes, because obviously athletes are always looking for that extra edge of where can I learn more, what can I gain, what edge can I gain. But really, for me, I think a lot of pro athletes kind of identify they know their strengths. They can
Yeah.
watch, they go and they watch film and they
Yeah,
see
they
their
don't need a
strengths, they see
computer to
what they
tell
do.
them.
They don't need an AI to go and tell them, oh, this is what you're good at. They're like, well, yeah, I know I'm
Right.
good at that.
Maybe
Now,
at the high school level then.
high school is exactly what I was thinking. Or early college years where like you're still finding yourself as an athlete and you can still seek growth. I can see a lot of like youth clubs really trying to capitalize on this and say, well, if you really want to go to the next level, this is what you need to grow on, and
Yeah.
helping young people identify. But with the pro athlete, I think they know what works for them. They know their training regimen. They know what they want to do. And they have coaches and resources through whatever team or league or, for example, Olympic nation that they work with. And it's like, I don't really need this. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I think there could be capitalization where, like, you could say to a breaststroker, um, for example, in swimming, big Olympic sport, right? Here's where you're losing zero point 0.1 seconds on your breaststroke. Here's how
And
you
this is how to
change this
improve it.
form, and really help them visualize, which I think could be a really helpful tool and paired with a coach. Same thing applies with track and field, right? Slight, very, very slight form corrections. But at the same time, I don't know if a professional athlete competing at the Olympic level would say, I want to change that, right? Because like
Yeah.
this is what I've done for so long. This is what I know is right. I don't want to mess with that. To
Yeah,
a
right.
extent.
Obviously you can't make everybody perform the same way. Even with AI telling you like this is the optimal way to do it with based on their algorithm, I don't think, every athlete doesn't perform the same way. I mean, I guess baseball is a good example. Nobody has the same stance, right? So
Right.
like something works different for everybody. And it's the same in every sport. Everybody has a little different technique. But going back to the youth thing a little bit, where I could see it being a problem if it got into youth and high school sports, this technology, is those with a lack of resources would be seriously at a disadvantage, right?
Mm,
Um, let's say those families who had athletes that can't afford to play club sports or AAU sports, like here in the US. A lot of AAU clubs would adopt this if they had the right money to do it, right? If they had the demand to do it, they're going to implement that because it's going to make their athletes better and people are going to pay more to be in their programs.
mm,
But then when you get into is the rich people are the ones who are having the highest performance, and the not as well off people are not having access to the tools that allow them to have as high performance. It changes the fair play of sports at the youth and high school level a little bit. And maybe that's just me being a little cynical, or pessimistic, but I do kind of see it going that way. I mean, we're already transitioning to a model right now in the US where it's like if you don't play club sports, it's hard to get to a level beyond high school. So adding AI into the mix of that, I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I think it could be great from a athlete development standpoint, um, but from a fair play standpoint, I don't know. There could be some drawbacks.
mm. Well said. And it's challenging, right? Because the U.S. is really a money game. It always has been, and possibly it always will be, unless we really introduce societal and sustainability change. But kind of talking to that, I think you're definitely right. There is a concern where people who have the money to be able to afford a tool like this is going to help you learn so quickly and really identify what you're doing wrong is helpful. But at the same time, no matter what, and this is the type of thing where it comes back to like and people like, for example, Alex Morgan and Zlatan Ibrahimovic talk about it. Kids in the US don't go out on the street and play a sport barefoot. Right? They're not going into the
I did. I don't know if you did, but
well,
I definitely
I
did.
did I did too, right? But I'm not doing it every day for multiple hours a day. Like
Yeah.
even like and neither was I doing it with a bunch of friends in the same way that a Brazilian Ronaldinho or Neymar, for example, is, right? If you've seen the Pele movie, you've seen the film of them and they're going through the city and they're kicking a ball made of rags, right? That doesn't happen in the US. There's a certain boundary of limit where we think athletes and parents think their athlete needs the resources, the tools, and the environment to be able to go and participate in the sport and learn it. And that's not really the case,
No,
right?
you learn it by doing it.
You learn it by doing it, in addition to learn it by being surrounded by people. So, but effectively, right? This is a tool where it's going to help athletes identify what they're doing wrong, what they need to do better. But at the same time, a student or an athlete who is super passionate about what they're doing and is willing to pursue it with everything they have, I believe will still be more successful than the rich kid who goes and uses this tool.
I agree. I agree. And that's not to say I know we sound very against people with money taking advantage of their opportunities. I'm not saying I'm against that. I'm saying is that it could create an imbalance.
Yeah,
That
absolutely. And
that's all I meant.
there is the concern of that, and that's a major concern in especially when you look at like the elite level teams, right? I work with
Yeah.
Seacoast, right? We have elite teams to play for my premiership level team,
Yeah.
right? It's $2,500
Yeah.
for
By
a
the way,
season.
I don't mind the whole club system because I'm trying to recruit a lot of them as clients right now. I reached out to like I reached out to like 15 different club teams the other day for media work. So hopefully they don't hear this and think like I hate club
Oh
sports.
no, no, and it's
That's
not.
not what I'm saying.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I love the club system in the U.S. I think it's really unique and it's beautiful in
It
comparison
is super
to
unique.
what Europe has. But really, what we need to do is can we identify moments where we can create opportunities for young people to really be able to grow and be passionate about a sport, right?
Yeah.
Because what we see, and I think part of your concern with the AI thing is, does this just remove the emotion behind it, right?
Yeah.
You're professionalizing it at a too young of an age,
Oh
right?
yeah, for
Where
sure.
like
And that is
if
already
you're going and
happening.
taking an 8-year-old and saying we're going to do this massive assessment on you to see how you can become the best athlete in the world, well, yeah, it's great,
It takes
but
all the fun out of
at
it.
a certain point, like that's not what the kid wants at 8,
No.
right?
No, of course not. And that leads to the larger question that I wanted to ask surrounding the youth part of this. If AI came into youth sports, if kids aren't happy with the data they're seeing, do you think they'll just stop playing? Because that would be a tragedy in my opinion. But I don't know. Do you think that's a possibility?
And it's hard, right? Because for me as a kid, and for me even as a person now, right, there are moments that I fail, and you fail and you fail and you fail and you get up and you go and you get up and you go and you get up and you go. And you just got to keep going, right? And that's what sports is about, right? There is no moment in your life where you're going to sit there and you're going to say, I have accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. I'm totally happy with the results that I gained from today. As an athlete, you never say that, right? We're all obsessed. We're all
Of course, yeah,
perfectionists, right? Um, so for me, it's like a kid's not happy with the results. Well, have you put the work in to earn it? Do they turn around and say, "Oh, I want to work harder," or do they go and quit? Right, and that's the duality of
yeah,
well, for me, let's say, and this is me talking as a parent, right? And I don't have a kid. I'm 20 years old. I
future,
don't plan to
future,
have a kid for a long time. But
future,
for me, thinking as a coach and a parent, if I have a kid who I give the opportunity to learn more from data, and they go and they take that data and say, I'm not good enough, I'm going to quit, and I should fail. Well, then you don't want this in the first place,
yeah. They didn't. Yeah, they weren't meant to
right?
play in the first
So
place. Yeah,
again, it is concerning. It can remove that joy because like again, watching film and watching yourself over and over and over again and being obsessive with the things that you're trying to improve in is difficult and it's challenging. But I really think a lot of kids can go and look at it and say, well, here's an area that I can really learn and grow and improve myself based on self reflection. I think it could teach a lot of really important skills in a way to really leverage yourself and leverage information usage. For example, like if I was doing a presentation and I was really wanting to grow my public speaking skills, right? There's no reason
yeah,
I couldn't record my presentation, look back at it, and watch it, and ask somebody or an AI engine, what could I have done better here,
yeah,
right? And that's me actively seeking growth. I think that can be really healthy for a kid, but I really would want. The problem is in the U.S. system, I know for a fact parents would force this on their kids who don't really want it, and
yeah.
then what would end up happening is the kid would lose passion for it. It would become a parent's obsession. And we kind of see kids move out of traditional sports,
Yeah,
which we
that's the
already
thing
kind
is
of see.
I'm all for development in technology and advancing how we can make sports better through the use of technology, specifically AI, because I think that's one of the leading things right now, right? Is you have to be on top of that. How can you make the experience better for everybody?
Mm.
But I don't want to see it come at the expense of participation among kids, right? Obviously, that's never a good thing, right? if a lot of kids decide like, hey, this just isn't for me because I don't want to have the pressure of the numbers on me at a super young age, that's kind of understandable. And it would be kind of sad, more than it would just be sad to see a bunch of like a large percentage of kids drop out of sports altogether as a result of that.
Right.
So I'm hoping that if it does get implemented and continues to be implemented by the Olympics specifically in youth, if they keep trying to do I don't want to call it experiments, but tests with AI to see how they're going to move forward with it. I hope that they kind of keep that in mind, where it's like we want to help these people perform, but we also want to make them more interested in their sport too.
Agreed. There's an
So
ethics, there's a social ethics, societal piece behind it where I think
yeah,
the Olympics can do a really good work here and do something really unique for a lot of countries, for a lot of young people who are looking to grow audiences in sports like track, like swimming, whatever, where people
yeah,
can really learn and grow. And if they do it right with the right social ethics and the right background, it'll be world changing for sport and for sports passion, especially as the Olympics adds new pieces and new things um, to its repertoire, right? Like, for example, breakdancing being added to the Olympics, right? Breakdancing is such a
yeah.
free.
That's crazy, by the way. So
I'm
we
so.
did a
Oh, you don't understand how excited I am for Olympic breakdance. For Olympic,
yeah.
it's gonna be amazing. Okay, just
Is that
please.
just this year? Because
That is.
I remember we looked it up in class because we had to do a project on the Olympics,
Mm.
and I was like, wait, when did Olympic breakdancing get added? You know, I'm like,
I could
that's
do a whole episode on breakdancing culture and why it's going to be amazing, and why Red Bull and the breakdancing tour does an awesome job, and why this is going to be an
I mean,
awesome.
dude, somebody sponsor me. I'll hop in there right away. Like, I'm
Sure.
so I'm so serious too. You, dude, like I can dance. So
On the conference, Paul breaks it down.
I'm just
Paul,
saying,
Paul, we'll have to have a
sponsor
dance
me,
battle sometime.
sponsor me.
We'll have a dance battle sometime. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'll have you up to UMass for sure.
Get a whole hype circle. Let's go. We'll run it. No, I did 8 years of hip hop and breakdancing growing up.
I did not know that. Okay, never mind. I'm not
That's
challenging
why I'm
you.
talking about it in the way that I am.
Okay.
It's something I'm really passionate about and wish I did more nowadays. But kind of going back to it, right? Something that's so free and rhythmic and like it's just about creativity. How can AI really contribute to that? And it's really interesting. I think it could. And
Yeah.
like, well, how can a kid kind of learn to dance? Can AI create just dance things that mirror a breakdancing routine from the Olympics that kids
Yeah.
could go and
Even
do it?
more than that, I was thinking like the spectators in the stadium could have the goggles on and follow the dance moves of the person by AI telling them what body part to move in what way.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know
And
what I mean?
right, there's super interesting opportunities where these new sports innovations that are really focused on creativity, thinking skateboarding, thinking surfing, right, thinking breakdancing, where form's important, but it really is just about being yourself and being able
Yeah.
to go and flow. Um,
How can technology contribute to the creativity?
right, it would be super
Yeah.
interesting to see. But at the same time, the concern, even then, just like we talked about with sports, is how does that at the same time restrict creativity, right?
Right.
Thinking of me in dance, right, and now we're kind of on a bit of a tangent, right? I did a lot of
I
choreography.
love tangents. Don't worry about it.
I was a highly choreographed dancer. Right? I did it dance groups, dance teams, etc. Where now when I go into a dance circle, right, I have all these tools that I've learned, but I kind of feel uncomfortable using them because it's not something that I've practiced. So I don't. Right, you lose that freedom to a certain extent by being over choreographed. So it's something that you have to find and put your emotion and heart to, which makes it so beautiful that people can just kind of go and you come up with something on the fly and you just flow, right? So I would worry that AI kind of restricts that. But in the same way, I think it can be such a helpful tool where now so many more people are able to access education to sport and to movement and to physical literacy, where we see a world where that is healthier and more fit. And really, I think this is a huge way that we could answer, especially in the US, a obesity epidemic where people are encouraged to get up and move, right? And it's, can you break down the barrier where I could get up right now and sit in my room on my floor, which no longer has a carpet, and do a breakdance routine.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that I couldn't, and there's no reason that you couldn't do the same thing. But like, there's no reason, right, that we couldn't go and make a fitness revolution using this technology and using this tool.
Yeah.
People are
Yeah,
able
for
to
sure.
better learn motion
More
and have
specifically,
better access to coaching.
we've talked about like the athletic part of it now, and now the fitness part of it. I want to get into a little bit of how AI, and from the Olympic standpoint, could help their viewers and their spectators more, their in person and online spectators. So I think this one is kind of interesting. As soon as the 2024 Olympics, AI could help viewers and judges gain more information about athlete performances. For example, the exact angle a diver went into the water at. So, like we were just talking about with breakdancing, being able to follow along as a spectator with what the athlete is doing and see it from their viewpoint, and maybe even having AI be able to teach you how to do the same thing. I think that could be something that would make the Olympics boom, because so many of the sports that they have are super niche. Depending on what part of the world you live in, you don't have access to certain resources, or they're performed in different climates. Obviously, the winter sports versus the summer sports, um, and how you navigate that. So, could AI teach a person who lives in Brazil to do a winter sport? You know what I mean? I just think that concept is interesting, and I think specifically to be able to bring a better product to their viewers, I think AI could help them better create the way to show their product in the way that is going to attract fans, right? We're thinking about highlight reel specifically. Me being a video guy, I do a lot of highlight reel stuff. So the Olympic Broadcasting Service is planning to use computerized generation tools to create a quote near infinite array of highlight clips based on sport and country. So the fact that you could, let's say in your Olympic viewing experience, let's say it's on NBC. Let's say they have an AI chat tool. What sport do you want to watch? What country do you want to watch? And then it gives you the highlights of that country from the past week in that sport. You know what I mean? That would be really cool, and that would change the game as a viewer, where you could really personalize what you want to watch and what you're consuming. And I believe that this would help fandom, because it would create an effect where essentially you cannot get more out of the experience than you are currently getting. You could get the most out of the experience that you wanted to. I don't know. What do you think about that concept?
Well, first of all, well done. It's a great thought, right? There's a lot that we can do with AI. It has a lot of interesting tooling, right? As we just kind of talked about. We know short form content is
Yeah.
on its
Yeah.
high road right now, right? It
Yeah.
is. Can we, right?
6 second attention spans.
Right? Can we have that 6-7 second attention span? I think the Olympics can absolutely do that through this highlight form. Whether it's through nations just being able to post more, right? Use social media, use all this tooling where they can really grow an audience. Super, super special and super exciting, right? There's a lot that we can do there through it. Secondly, right, can we create more connectivity, right? And really by offering more of an experience and describing the experience more in unique ways where fans can understand more, especially like if you're watching a sport, especially, right, somebody's watching the Summer Olympics, you're going to tend to watch a sport you understand more. But then
True.
how can you go and understand the sport, right? Can the Olympics offer a tool where you can gain the information and knowledge based on the questions you have during a match, rather than you just kind of going on Google and trying to figure it out, right? That's what they can totally do, and you're growing your audience and growing your interactions there.
Yep.
Where someone is probably going to be able to become a fan of a sport so much quicker because they can understand so much more.
Yeah, and not only being able to answer questions about how the sport works, but also maybe how it looks when you're doing it. I was thinking, let's say they put like a little body cam in everybody's uniforms, right? And there's an AI option to switch over to the first person view of how this would look. Or maybe they can even simulate how it would look, right? Maybe you don't even need the camera. If you could simulate that, then you could say, oh, am I interested in the sport? Like, as a fan, am I now interested to go try and do this sport? Am I interested to go participate in this? One of the things that came to my mind was Winter Olympics, bobsledding or skeleton, that type of
Oh
thing. How would that look first person, right?
yeah.
And how do you get more people interested in that? Because that is such a niche thing where if you don't live in a cold country with a track like that, then you may not be able to get into it. Even within a country itself, like the US, if you don't live in a cold area, then you probably aren't going to have access to anything related to bobsledding or to skeleton or any of that type of sport. So, how can you create a view where you get fans more interested because they can envision themselves actually physically doing what the Olympic athletes are doing?
Well said, and absolutely right. Again, creating opportunity for connectivity, growth, and growth in new markets. Right, kind of we talked about with Liga earlier. It's about trying to create connection of how we can grow our audiences and how our audience can grow as people. Right, we talked about it before. It's about creating community, right, and really uniquely, we're
Yeah.
creating community here. In a really special and dynamic way of you're creating more community around a sport like bobsled because people are able to interact and understand it better.
Yeah.
Just taking the process of like how it's made, how it's done, how the training goes, what it looks like, how it feels, right? That experience is so key and really can connect with the fans both, right? We're trying to connect with their mind, but also their heart and their passion. And the heart and the passion is in their nation and their nationalism, right? But can we connect
Yeah.
also with their mind and their understanding of the game and trying to challenge them mentally um, with like
It's
trivia
connecting technology with
or
emotion.
information? Exactly, right? Connecting technology with emotion and with understanding, it's really going to be able to grow a really unique Olympic audience. And so it should be something we're super excited about. And it should be something that we hope to see implemented into sports as a whole, both Winter and Summer Olympics, but also like just general soccer leagues. I can see the Liga using this in the U.S. promotions they're going to try to do. I can see the 2026 World Cup capitalizing on this with people going to
Yeah.
soccer games or people watching a game on the TV, right?
I said this too. I think I said this to my parents the other night. I think one thing that soccer would really benefit from is kind of a first person point of view that the fan could follow along
Yeah,
with. I don't
absolutely.
know how they would accomplish that. Maybe it's a simulation through AI, or maybe it's a camera angle like I was suggesting.
Mm,
But I think really having that and taking the fan onto the pitch would change the viewing experience and would, I believe, ignite more interest in audiences that don't have as much soccer experience, like specifically here in the U.S. There are some areas that don't have professional clubs or that don't have professional clubs that are playing at a high level.
mm.
So to ignite that passion in it, it's how does it look when I'm the one on the pitch in front of 40,000 people and I'm following along? Obviously, they couldn't actually perform it themselves through the simulation, but maybe they could follow along in an immersive way.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that really speaks to what we were just talking about, where it's connecting technology with emotion. And unless you have any other thoughts on this, I just want to end with this quote from the Olympic Broadcasting Services CEO. I really hope I'm pronouncing this name right. Giannis Exarchos.
let's see.
Um, we need to be using technology to tell the stories of the best athletes in the world in the most exciting ways. The Olympics is not about showcasing technology, it's about bringing people together.
Mm.
And I think that really speaks to their mission and what we just talked about in creating community through the use of AI.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And that's exactly what the vision of any sport should be, right? It's not about business. It's not about um, being successful. It's not about winning every game. It's not about getting those promotions, right? Those are all great things, but it's about the people. It's about the
Yeah.
fan. It's about the athlete. It's about the amazing moments that we all get to share together and those passions that we feel and what we feel in our heart of whoa or ah or ooh or sad, right? The
Right.
tears you
Yeah.
cry, the screams you scream, right? The knee slides in the corner in the mud that you get your
Yeah.
white socks and your white cleats dirty and gross from.
It's
The
why I want to work
losses
in
and
sports in
wins.
the first place, man. There's nothing else like it. There
Exactly.
really is just no comparable experience other than the elation or sadness that you can get, the range of emotion really that sports can bring out of a person. And I want to be part of impacting people in a positive way in that. I think I want to be a part of bringing people together. And I think using technology is going to be a big part of it going forward, not just from a success standpoint, but really your success is based on bringing people together, right?
Mm.
If you don't have a fan base that is wanting to interact with your club, then you're not going to be successful. But the way to create that is to make it the best experience it can be and have that emotion where you can connect with people, not just on the organizational level, but also with the players and everybody. Well, I guess everybody involved with the organization should be able to connect with the fans, right? Having that fan first mentality will ultimately lead to success. So hopefully the Olympics can use their use of technology to create that.
Well said, Paul. Very well said. Quick shout out, because I know we're talking about the first person view, and I know it's a total sidetrack. There is an iconic Nike soccer commercial that does exactly that. And for an exact reason, the exact reason that you just described with the first person view and why it's so valuable is it is one of the greatest Nike soccer commercials of all time. Okay. So if you
Okay.
Google first person Nike soccer commercial, all those listening, go watch it. It is emotional. It's beautiful. Arsene Wenger is in it. Okay. Check it out. Highly recommend. It explains what emotion and how valuable that experience that Paul's talking about is, right? Being able to see and like, wow, I'm in the shoes and I'm playing soccer with my idols against my idols, right? Against the greatest players in the world, right? And that's not something that you can generally experience, but now you can experience it through this unique opportunity. And how much more does that grow your passion, your creativity, and your community, right? Because now you feel like you have a personal relationship with these people, even though you really don't.
Yeah, that's what it is. It makes you feel closer to the team. And I think that's really what AI can do is it can make the fan feel closer to the team and feel more connected with what they already feel a sense of pride in. I think we've said all about we can say, man. That's kind of how I want to end things today. Go follow us on socials, man. I mean, we've really appreciated some of the love recently. Our clips have been getting a few more views for sure. Well, TikTok is a whole different story, but I the conundrum that is TikTok. But otherwise, otherwise we've been doing yeah, true. Otherwise, we've been doing a little bit better recently. So go follow us, sbt.podcast on Instagram, sbt.pod23 on TikTok, hopefully for a while. Who knows? And sbt_pod23 on Twitter. As always, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.